examination of the 7th cranial nerve. Today we are going to discuss the cranial nerve examination of 7 to 12 except cranial nerve 8 because cranial nerve 8 we have discussed previously. We will start with examination of 7th cranial nerve. Whenever we start the examination of any cranial nerve, first we have to think about the function of that cranial nerve, or we can say the functional classification of that cranial nerve. So the 7th cranial nerve, it is a mixed type of nerve. It is a sensory function, motor function and the secretomotor function. So it is a mixed type of nerve. It has a sensory function, motor function and the secretomotor function. Okay, the 8th cranial nerve, it has a sensory function. 9th cranial nerve, it is again mixed type of nerve. It has a both function sensory, then motor as well as secretomotor. Then 10th cranial nerve, it is also the mixed type of nerve. It has a sensory, motor and the secretomotor function as it affects the secretion of GAT also. Then 11 and 12, these two are the pure motor nerves. So whenever you think about the examination of cranial nerve, always remember the which type of functional classification of this nerve. Let's start with the 7th cranial nerve. Okay, it has a 3 function: sensory function, motor function and the secretomotor function. In sensory function, it carries the taste sensation from anterior 2/3 of the tongue. It carries the taste sensation from anterior 2/3 of the tongue. Okay, so it carries the taste sensation from anterior 2/3 of the tongue. Now motor function, it supplies the muscle which are responsible for the facial expression. It supplies the muscles of facial expression, or the face muscle we can say. Another name of 7th cranial nerve, it is a facial nerve, because it supplies the muscles of facial expression. So it is also called the facial nerve. Now the secretomotor function, it modulates the secretion of salivary glands. Which two salivary glands? Sublingual and the submandibular. Sublingual and the submandibular gland secretion is affected by this 7th cranial nerve. In exam point of view, usually it is asked as assess the integrity of the 7th cranial nerve. So you have to do these two functions: sensory function, you have to assess sensory function and the motor function. For the secretomotor function, we do not perform it in exam. Okay, because lacrimal secretion, lacrimal gland also supplied by this nerve, and it is also comes under the autonomic function test. So you should not perform this secretomotor function. Okay, in exam you have to perform the sensory function and the motor function. Okay, so let's start with the examination of the facial nerve motor component. Okay, so it supplies the muscles of the face which are responsible for the facial expression. So if we are smiling, if we are crying, if we are sad, so this all the expression, it is because of the facial nerve. Okay, let's start with the facial nerve examination motor part. Okay, so let's start with the motor part examination of the 7th cranial nerve. So remember the muscle from above to downwards. So let's start with the first muscle, that is the occipitofrontalis muscle. So what instruction you will give to the subject? The subject head should be fixed. Subject's head should be fixed, and you should ask the subject to see upwards. What thing you have to remember here? That is the head should be fixed. Suppose I am the subject, then my head will be fixed like this, and I will instruct it to see upwards like this. When we see upwards, usually horizontal folds appear over the forehead, and that is the function of this occipitofrontalis muscle. Then next muscle, it is the procerus muscle. How will you see the function of the procerus muscle? So ask the subject to make the expression ask the subject to make the expression when he or she is angry, or ask the subject to frown like this. So whenever we are angry, usually we are frown like this, and the vertical folds, these vertical folds appear over this glabella. That is the function of this procerus muscle. So that is the function or the action of the second muscle, that is the procerus muscle. Third one is the orbicularis oculi muscle. This muscle in this muscle fiber, they are arranged in form of the orbit. The muscle fiber, they are arranged in the form of orbit. That's why the name of this muscle, it is orbicularis oculi. Though they are located near the orbit. They are located near the ocular structure, right? So how will you examine this muscle? Ask the subject to close the eye. Ask the subject to close the eye, and examiner will try to open it. Examiner will try to open it. Suppose the action of this or the muscle power of this muscle is normal, the subject will able to kept his or her eye closed. Okay, suppose I am the subject, then I will close the eye, and the examiner will try to open. Examiner will try to open the eye. If the muscle power of this muscle is normal, then examiner usually not able to open the eye. That is a function of orbicularis oculi muscle. Okay, so the occipitofrontalis muscle, procerus muscle, orbicularis oculi muscle. Now next is the levator labii superior equinasi. Levator labii superior equinasi. As the name suggests, this superior equinasi, it is responsible for the appearance of the nasolabial folds. So how will you assess this muscle? Ask the subject to smile or show his or her teeth. Ask the subject to smile or ask the subject to show his teeth. So these folds, these nasolabial folds which appear, this is a function of this muscle levator labii superior equinasi, and the appearance of nasolabial fold should be equal on both sides. So there is a symmetry between this. In facial palsy, there is a completely absent of appearance of the nasolabial fold. So this was the muscle superior levator labii superior equinasi. Now next is the orbicularis oris muscle. Again, the muscle fiber, they are arranged in the form of orbit, and they are around the mouth. In that muscle assessment, you have to ask the subject to whistle. Ask the subject to whistle. So this is the function of orbicularis oris muscle. If the person is able to do that, then again muscle power is normal. Then next is the buccinator muscle. The buccinator muscle. Okay. So in buccinator muscle, ask the subject to inflate the air in the mouth and make it the mouth like this. So inflate the air in the mouth, and what examiner will do? Examiner will tap. So ideally there should not be leaking of any air. Ideally there should not be leaking of air. That is the function of this buccinator muscle. So ask the subject to inflate the air in the mouth, and the examiner will tap on the cheek. Usually there is no leaking of air. That is the function of the buccinator muscle. Then next is the platysma muscle. The platysma muscle, there should not be confusion between the examination of platysma muscle and the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Ask the subject to see downwards like this, and you have to apply the resistance here. In that you have to apply the resistance here, and ask the subject to see downwards. So this prominent muscle, see these vertical muscles, that are platysma muscle. This muscle, it is a sternocleidomastoid muscle. So ask the subject to see downwards, and this muscle, this is a sternocleidomastoid, and this one, this one, it is the platysma muscle. Okay, so as the subject to see downwards, you have to apply the resistance. And this straight muscle, that is the platysma muscle. And the last one is the stapedius muscle. You cannot do examination of the stapedius muscle. The subject or the patient herself will complain that I have no tolerance to noise. There is a noise tolerance level decreased. This is the preparation tray for the taste sensation. There are 4 taste sensation. We will check the sweet solution, then sour solution, salty solution, and the bitter solution. We will prepare this sweet solution from the sugar. We will prepare the sour solution from the citric acid or from the lemon juice or from lemon. Then for the salty solution, we will prepare it from the salt. And the last one is the bitter. We will prepare from the dissolution of the quinine tablet. So these 4 solution we will check for the taste sensation. The taste sensation we will check in the 3 cranial nerves. One is the 7th cranial nerve from the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. For the 9th cranial nerve, for the taste sensation from the posterior 1/3 of the tongue. And in some subject, the taste sensation from anterior 2/3 of the tongue is carried out by the 5th cranial nerve. So in these 3 cranial nerve, you can do the taste sensation examination. Now how we will perform the taste sensation assessment. Okay, so ask the subject to protrude the tongue. And we will place the 1 drop of each solution with help of the glass rod, or in case if the glass rod is not available, you can take the dropper. Then place it on the right side of the tongue. After that, place the solution from the left side of the tongue. First, ask the subject to protrude the tongue. Then place the drop of the solution with the glass rod or with the dropper on the right side of the tongue. Then ask the subject to write the sensation whatever she or he had perceived. So thing you have to remember here that you will not allow the subject to close the mouth in between the taste solution examinations. Right? You should not allow the subject to close the mouth or to speak anything, because of what will happen, there is a mixing of the saliva and the taste solution will be spread to the entire tongue. So you will not assess properly the taste sensation. So this was about the first solution, that is the sweet solution. Then once you have placed the drop of one solution on the right side of the tongue, or if you have started from left side, then next you have to place the same solution on the left side of the tongue. But in between that you have to clean the tongue. With help of this filter paper. You have to place the clean filter paper on the tongue, and it will absorb the solution, extra solution whichever present in the tongue. So your next the taste sensation examination will not be get affected. So in between the different taste solution, you have to clean the tongue with help of the filter paper. So that thing you have to remember. The second thing you have to remember, that you should perform the taste sensation examination on right side of the tongue as well as on the left side of the tongue. The third thing, we have already explained that you will not allow the subject to close the mouth or to speak anything. Now you have assessed the sweet solution. Then take the second solution. Use the glass rod separately for the each solution. Use the glass rod or the dropper separately for the each solution. The next one is the sour solution. So again ask the subject to protrude the tongue, closes the eye, take the drop of the solution from the with help of glass rod or the dropper, put it on the right side of the tongue. For the sweet solution, usually we perceive best when you place it on the tip of the tongue. For the sour solution is also on the slightly behind the tip of the tongue. Then ask the subject to write the test whatever he or she has perceived. That is the second thing. Then clean the tongue with the help of the filter paper. Place the same solution on the left side of the tongue. Then again clean the tongue. Now next move for the third taste sensation, that is the salty solution we have prepared from the salt. In that also place the drop of the solution on the right side of the tongue, clean the tongue, place it on the left side, then clean the tongue. For the salt solution you should place slightly on the side of the tongue, slightly side of the tongue, so the inside that salt test is perceived best. Okay, for the sweet and the sour usually tip is the best, in the tip of the tongue it is best perceived. For the salty solution slightly placed on the side of the tongue. For the bitter test you have to place on the somewhat posterior aspect, in the anterior two-thirds of the tongue, but slightly place the solution posteriorly, because the density of the receptor which are responsible for the bitter test, they are usually placed on the somewhat posteriorly. So we also experience that when we add the bitter thing, we felt the bitter taste after a few milliseconds as compared to other three tests. Okay, because the receptor for the bitter test, the density is more on the posterior side as compared to the anterior aspect of the tongue. For the bitter test you also remember that the bitter test you should perform in last. Ideally you should follow this sequence: sweet, salty, sweet, sour, salty and the bitter. And the bitter always you should perform it on the last, because the bitter test lasts longer. You will also have the experience, or you have already experienced, when we have at any bitter thing, it will remain, our mouth remain bitter for the longer duration as compared to the others. So there are two reasons. One thing, that is the threshold for the bitter test, threshold of the solution for the bitter test is very low as compared to other three. The second thing, once the depolarization of the test receptor for the bitter test taken place, it remained depolarized for the longer duration as compared to others. That's why we felt the bitter taste for the longer duration as compared to the others. So this was about the taste sensation examination. Things you have to remember that you will not allow the subject to close the mouth or speak anything. The second thing, follow this sequence. Okay. The third thing, ask the subject to write the whatever taste sensation she has perceived. Okay. Do the examination on the right side as well as on left side, on both sides. And last one, that clean the tongue in between the taste solution examination. From right side clean the tongue, do it from the left side, then clean the tongue, then do it for the another taste solution. So in between make sure that tongue should be clean with help of the filter paper. Now if your subject is not literate, she is not read anything or she can't write anything, so usually this type of person, they know the counting if you explain them. So they explain them like that: if you perceive that sweet solution, raise the one finger. If you felt the sour solution, then raise the two finger. So in that way you can explain the subject whatever convenient to the subject, so she can express properly. If the person is not able to do the counting, then you can keep the picture of them also. Now we will learn the difference of the supranuclear lesion and the infranuclear lesion. When we first move for the supranuclear and infranuclear type of lesion, remember the 4 lines. Like the supranuclear lesion of the facial nerve, it is equivalent to the upper motor neuron type of lesion. The infranuclear lesion of the facial nerve, that is also known as the Bell's palsy, it is equal to the lower motor neuron type of lesion. Okay. In supranuclear type of lesion, the muscle fiber of lower half of the face of opposite side will be affected. In supranuclear lesion, lower part of the face and of opposite side will be get affected. while in infranuclear lesion, the entire entire half face, or the you can say the hemiparalysis of the face, hemiplegia of the face of one side, and that is of the same side of the lesion. The half of the face on the same side will be get affected in infranuclear lesion. Okay, so they remember this four line. Supranuclear lesion, it is equivalent to the upper motor neuron type of lesion. Infranuclear, it is equal to the lower motor neuron type of lesion. In supranuclear lesion, the lower part and opposite side of the face, lower part of the face and opposite side of the face will be affected, while in the infranuclear lesion, the entire half face of same side will be affected. In infranuclear lesion, the entire half face on the same side will be affected. Now we will see the arrangement of the muscle fiber and the muscle fiber supplied by the nerves. So this one is the cerebral cortex, this one is the nucleus of the seventh cranial nerve, and these are the muscles of the face. Now see, the green, the nerve fiber, they are in the form of green. They have the bilateral presentation. They had a bilateral presentation. It will innervate the nucleus of the seventh cranial nerve on same side as well as on the opposite side. While the nerve fiber which are in blue color, they will innervate the nucleus of seventh cranial nerve on the opposite side. The nerve fiber relay in seventh cranial nerve here and on the opposite side. Now, from the nucleus of the seventh cranial nerve, the nerve fiber which originate from the nucleus of the seventh cranial nerve, which are originated from the green nerve fiber, they supply the upper part of the face. So the muscle fiber of the upper part of the face, they had a bilateral cortical presentation. While the nerve fiber that originated from the seventh cranial nerve nucleus and supplies the lower part of the face, they had a only unilateral cortical presentation. And on the opposite side, muscle fiber of the lower part of the face, they had a unilateral cortical presentation and on the opposite side. So this is the difference of the basis of the supranuclear and the infranuclear type of lesion. Now effect I will told you in one line. So when there is a lesion is here, it is known as a supranuclear type of lesion. So the what will be effect is that, see, the lower part of the face which has a unilateral cortical presentation, and on opposite side the muscles of that are affected. And which are that muscle? The muscles are the levator labii, superior equinae, buccinator muscle, then orbicularis oris muscle and the platysma muscle. So these are the muscles of lower part of the face that has a unilateral cortical presentation on the opposite side. While this upper part of the face, it will get spared. The muscles of the upper part of the face, it will remain normal or unaffected because they had a bilateral cortical presentation. Now what is the infranuclear type of lesion? Infranuclear type of lesion, it is a more common. It is also known as a Bell's palsy, and most common cause the inflammation or the edema of the facial nerve near or just distal to the stylomastoid foramen. Here there is a stylomastoid foramen. All of you must be knowing the stylomastoid foramen, that is very tiny. The nerve is coming from the stylomastoid foramen. It is a very tiny foramen, and slight inflammation or the edema, it will lead to the compression of the nerve, and this compression, it will lead to the lesion. So this is the Bell's palsy. Most common causes inflammation and the edema of the facial nerve near the stylomastoid foramen, and it is the most common cause, as well as facial palsy or facial palsy of this type, infranuclear type, or you can say the Bell's palsy, is much more common. Now what is the effect you will see in the Bell's palsy? So in that infranuclear lesion, the muscles of the face of one side will be affected and on the same side of the lesion. Muscle fiber of the one side of the face will be affected and it will be of the same side of the lesion. Okay, so this is the Bell's palsy. So in Bell's palsy, the entire face is get affected and it is on the same side of the lesion. Now what is the effect? You will see the one side of the face will become motionless. One side of the face will become motionless. Okay, so the wrinkles on the, suppose I have the paralysis of the right side of the face, the wrinkles on the this part of the face will disappear, horizontal wrinkles, and when I do this type of movement on right side, this vertical wrinkles will disappear. Then I am not able to close the eye on right side. Okay, when I am trying to, when I will try to closes the eyeball roll upward and outward, and this is known as a Bell's phenomenon. This is known as a Bell's phenomenon. This is a Viva question. Okay. Then when person try to smile, the face is drawn to the normal side because the muscle of the normal side, they have normal tone, normal power, so they can pull the big muscles. So the face is drawn to the normal side. When person eat the food during the chewing or during a mastication, food will be accumulated between the cheeks, the food cheeks and the teeth. So the food get accumulating. So these are the effects of the Bell's palsy or the infranuclear type of